going on, everybody? Welcome back to Project Potter. Welcome back to On Your Left, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier review. My name is Kyle, your host. Thanks for checking out Project Potter, guys. This is our episode 4 review of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and boy, did things just get real. If you guys haven't seen the show before, we're going to do a quick recap, like most of our reviews here, a score, and then we usually do like a strongest character, but we're not doing it for this series. It's kind of like a mini review. This is a mini series on Disney Plus, so yeah, we are gonna jump right into it here, guys. So starting off the recap here. So if you guys remember last time we met Zemo and he kind of got him out, he tried to kind of use the old words on Bucky, and Bucky's like, nah, dude. He's like, I've been to some meetings. He's like, I'm good. I'm not that person anymore. And so we start off this episode, and if you guys remember last time, the episode ended with Bucky actually seeing, I think her name was Okoye from Wakanda. And so it's cool because they're tying in that universe as well. And they play like the Wakandan like drum beat or whatever, like in this episode a few times. So it's really, really cool. And we are reminded how badass Wakanda is. So Bucky, it opens up with Bucky and they're playing the words. I think this is a flashback. This first part was kind of confusing, but I think this is when he was in Wakanda originally as a White Wolf, and he had to get that new arm, which we find a little trick about in a bit. But he is sitting there and they're like using the words on him, and he's like, it's not gonna work. And but he's getting really emotional. And like as she's saying the words, they're like going around a fire, and as she's saying the words, like rusted, longing, 17, homecoming, he's like getting flashbacks of Winter Soldier. But it's almost like he's like like flushing everything out. So whatever happens there, I don't know if it's some Wakandan magic or what happened, but Bucky is apparently free. He's set free. He's no longer Winter Soldier. Like, he's good from mind control. Hydra can no longer control him. The words can no longer control him. Like, as far as we know, Bucky is good. And he's like really emotional. He's crying. And I think this was a flashback, but I'm not really sure. So don't fact check me on that. But that was a cool little scene, basically to prove that Bucky is good. And then they like kind of cut back, I think, to present day, where it's like Bucky talking to Okoye, and it's like, why did you free him, all that stuff. They're like, hey, you have 8 hours to they were talking about Zemo, sorry. They're like, you have 8 hours to do whatever you need to do with him, because Bucky does say like he's a means to an end, and he's like, don't worry, like we're not like teaming up with Zemo or whatever, like we're using him to to find out, like stop the flag smashers basically, and find out what's going on. And they're like, okay, well, you have 8 hours, and then if not, we're gonna come kill him, like either way, because Okoye is like, look, this guy murdered our king. Like, people forget that. I don't know if people forget, but just a reminder, Zemo set up the bomb for King T'Chaka, and so that's like what set off Civil War. That's like how all this stuff started going down, basically. So, and that was like the introduction to Wakanda, basically. And so they're like, they still have vengeance on their mind, and they're like, look, we're gonna let you deal with Zemo for now, but in 8 hours, we're gonna come kill him. And so eventually they like, it's Sam and it's Bucky, and they're still trying to get leads, and they're still trying to track down Karli, and the rest of the flag smashers. And it's cool because we get more Zemo, but like you still can't trust him. It's so obvious. But there is a scene, I don't know if it's in this scene or if it's later in the episode, but it doesn't really matter. And ultimately, we kind of were wondering like why Zemo hates super serum so much, because if you guys remember, like he destroyed what we thought was all the rest of the super serum in Winter Soldier, and then it's like, what the hell, man? What's your deal with super serum? And he kind of reveals that here, where he says like, the serum changes you. He's like, it just makes you more of what is in you. But he's like, everyone turns to the dark side with the serum because you get powerful, and you can take on anything. And he's like, every single person gets that serum, and they go crazy, they go evil basically, because they're just drunk with power. And they're like, not true, look at Cap. And he says, well, there was only one Steve Rogers. And I was like, ain't that the truth? And come the end of the episode, dude, that is very much like a reminder that there was only one Steve Rogers. So that's cool, because we find out that basically Zemo is like, he kind of messed with super serum, and he's like, there should never be super serum in the world. So that's why he's trying to take all the super serum, and they're trying to stop the flag smashers and all that. So on the flip side of that, we kind of have a lot of scenes with Karli in this episode. She's really becoming like a charismatic villain in this show, in my opinion, where like we're following Karli around, and yeah, she killed some innocent people, so there's problems, so they're after her. Like John Walker is like hell bent on arresting her. But Sam and Bucky are like, you know what, man, this thing's complicated. Like it's more than that. It's not just like, hey, you did a crime, we gotta arrest you. There's a great scene where eventually they find out what Karli is, and there's like a funeral for like either the town, because they go back to like, I think it's Karli's old town. And sorry, I'm kind of like throwing out. I kind of just like, this is how I interpreted the episode. I don't know if this is accurate. Hopefully it's somewhat accurate, but again, this isn't like, I'm not looking up like, you know, the MCU facts straight from the website or anything. I'm just watching the episode and giving my honest reactions. So I think they went to like either Karli's hometown or where they grew up, or just where they took shelter. And like Sam's going through the school, and they're like, hey, we're looking for, they like put a name out there, but it's not Karli. I don't know what the name was, but everyone's like walking away from Sam. Like everyone's like scared and like going into another room, and Sam's like, hey, I'm just trying to talk. And like they're very clearly like, something's wrong. They don't want to talk to the Avengers. One of the guys says like, you know, we're not refugees, but he's like, we don't trust outsiders, and he's like, we don't have any interest in talking to you. And so eventually they do find out. Zemo gets like a contact. He like gives money to like a little girl or something, and they find that he gets them into the funeral basically, because they're like, it's like the mama of the town, or the mama of the town, or someone who kind of like looked over the town and was kind of like a mother to all. Karli is like leading that speech at the funeral, so they like get access into like a closed off funeral, and Sam's like up there, and he's like in clear shot, so that he lets Karli know like, hey, we're here to talk. And she sees him and she kind of freaks out, but he's like, hey, it's okay, like I'm here to like talk to you. And they have a plan where John Walker and Hoskins finds them, and he's like, well, how long did you think it was going to be before we found you, honestly? And it's like, oh, these guys again. And like they're intentionally, they were obviously leading his character towards a certain event at the end here, but man, John Walker is so annoying in this episode. He is just like, and it's good writing, and I would even say it's good acting, because like, man, you really hate John Walker in this episode. He's so annoying, and he's just like pompous, but he's getting his ass kicked all the time, but he's just like, it's because he's not good enough that he like keeps just like getting like abrasive. And so, you know, at first when John Walker started as Cap, you were like, okay, this guy isn't Steve, but like, you know, we knew he wasn't going to be Steve Rogers, but he was like, all right, well, he's trying to do the right thing, and they showed his military records and all that, and he's like, I'm just trying to be the best Cap I can be, and I'm like, okay, this guy maybe isn't so bad. Well, that's going to change in just a bit, but before we jump too far ahead, basically John is like aggressive, and he's like, Sam's like, hey man, this is a delicate situation, like let me talk to her, and like we're gonna go from there. We can't just go brute force of this thing. And then John Walker's like, you know, she killed a bunch of innocent people in a building, like we're past brute force, or we're past like, you know, talking it out. And they're like, dude, you gotta let us do it. And he's like, all right, you get 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna go in there if you need my help or you don't get the job done. And so they like put Zemo in handcuffs in like the building, and then Sam goes up there, and he's having a completely calm, completely rational conversation with Karli. It's a really, really nice scene. It's probably my favorite scene of the episode, where he's saying like, hey, you know, I came alone. He's like, I'm not here to hurt you. He's like, I just want to talk to you. He's like, look, I'm not the enemy. Sam is like, we're on the same side. He's like, I just don't agree with the way you're doing things. Like, you can't be blowing up buildings. And she's like, well, I blew up the building because they were in my way. And she's like, I'll kill them again. And he's like, wow. It's really, really great acting. It's like a really, really great subtle scene between them. And she's like, no, that's not, she's like, you made me say that. She's like, you're putting me in a position. And it was like a really interesting dynamic, because the MCU is really good at like, you know, just between Civil War and all the events that kind of led up to this, they are good at like touching on subjects that are a little iffy. But we don't see too much of like the smaller stories like that, or like the stuff that's like really like real, like the stuff that like I don't know how to describe it, like the expected real conversations that would be going on if this were happening. And so this is cool, because Sam is like very clearly reaching her, and she was like, oh, and she kind of trusts him. And there's like a scene back like on the other floor or whatever, or like just back at the entrance, where John is getting super impatient, and he's like stumbling back and forth, and Bucky's watching guard, and he's like, all right, that's it, I'm going in. And Bucky just puts his hand on him, and he's like, He's like, John, it hasn't been 10 minutes. You need to give it some time. And he's like, oh, this must be so easy for you with the super serum. And John is just very clearly jealous of the super serum the whole time. But, you know, John just blows the whole thing because just when Sam and Karli are connecting, and this, I don't know, this episode is strange because it was like very obvious. Some of the things that happened, I was like, oh, I saw this coming like 2 or 3 episodes ago. So I was a little disappointed that they decided to go that route, but then I think the ending kind of stuck the landing. So again, I'm kind of jumping ahead here, guys, but this is Project Potter. This is what we do, baby. This is what we do. We jump in and out. You know, we go out of order. So welcome to the channel. But yeah, Sam, basically, John busts in and he's like, Karli, you're under arrest. And it's like, oh, dude. And then Karli doesn't trust him. And she's like, what the hell, man? She like jumps out and then they get in this fight. And it's like, dude, we were so close to getting some sort of trust. And then John just went in there brute force. He like tries to tell Bucky, like, you know, your partner needs backup in there. And then they cut to Sam and it's like, he very clearly is just having a nice conversation. So it's like, dude, there's no yelling, there's no screaming. You know, there's no way that like, it's so dumb because John is just acting so irrational. And again, we will get into that in just a bit. But we do see after this kind of Karli and like the guy, I don't know, it's like a friend or whatever. It's just like one of the other guys with the flag smashers. And there's like a fun scene about, or like a touching scene, I should say, where they talk about how like, you know, I would have never met you. Like we were brought together all these different parts of the world, like with these, you know, unlikely alliances, whatever, all that stuff. They do go get the super serums that they were hiding under like a tombstone or whatever, or like in a certain secret like graveyard or something. And there's like all the little blue vials, and there's like I think eight or 12 of them. And you know, she puts them in like a fanny pack, and then like she's like, all right, let's go. And then there is later on like this big fight where once again like John is just trying to go after Karli, and Sam and Bucky are trying to figure something out. But Karli does actually call Sam's sister Sarah, and she's like, hey, this is Karli. And she's like, okay, why are you calling me? And she's like, well, I need to know if I'm going to kill your brother or not. She's like, I just want to let you know I talked to your brother, and I thought we had a really good like connection. I thought we had some good similarities, but she's like, he kind of broke my trust, and she's like, I need to know if he can, like, if I can trust him again. And she's like, what do you think of the, or she says like, you were working with the new cap. And Sarah says like, I can tell you one thing, Karli, if you don't believe anything else from me, believe this, that my brother is not working for that shield. Like, she's like 100% no. And she's like, okay, well, you know, I wouldn't pick John either, but she's like, who would you pick for a mascot? And then there's a really great line where Sarah says, this world doesn't care about, she says like, my world doesn't matter or something. She like clearly, again, they're touching on like the Black Lives Matter thing, where she's saying like, my opinion doesn't matter to this world. Like, I don't give a damn about their mascot because it doesn't matter what I say. And it's like, wow, that's so powerful and so sad that they said that. And so again, I really applaud the MCU for touching those controversial boundaries, those conversations that need to be had. I'm really glad that they're bringing that up and bringing the attention back up and being like, hey, you know, 2020 was rough. Okay, 2021 is better, but it's still in rough shape. We still have a lot of progress to be made as a country. It's like, so we're not gonna, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement and all that stuff. It's like, that was like a huge event. And so it's like, we're not going to forget that happened. We're going to bring that conversation up because some months have passed now. It's not in the news as much. And it's like, hey, we can't forget the progress that was made and the progress that needs to be done and the work that needs to be done. And it's like MCU, it's like, man, great job for them just like continuing to be like, hey, this is a superhero show and everything, but we know how many people are watching. And it's like, by the way, we care about these issues too, and we're trying to raise awareness there. So really, really great job by them. So basically she's like, hey, you know, come alone. She sends the coordinates to Sam. Sam doesn't come alone, which I'm like, I thought Bucky was going to be like hidden in plain sight or something, but she just shows up with Bucky and she's like, oh, obviously you didn't come alone. And he's like, hey, you know, we need to work together, blah, blah, blah. And then, dude, John Walker once again busts in. Although I think before that, guys, sorry, when there's Zemo, the Wakandans do come for Zemo. They bust open the door and they're like, hey, it's like, his time is up, like it's time to go. And John's like, okay. He's like, I don't know if you've met me, John Walker. And they just like kick his arm away. And they're like, John, you don't want to mess with the Wakandans. And then I forget their actual name. It's like a specific tribe. And he's like, well, the Wakandans don't have jurisdiction here. And then she says, like, I think it's Okoye. She says, like, the Wakandans have jurisdiction wherever they damn well please. And I was like, damn, dude. And they're like, yeah, dude, you don't want to mess with the Wakandans. And John's like, I think I could take them. And then they just kick his ass, dude. There's like and it's funny because like Zemo's watching, and this is when he does his little escape. And of course Zemo's going to escape, dude, because you can't trust him as far as you can throw him. So like he goes in there and like locks the bathroom door. There's like a manhole cover or whatever, not a manhole cover, but it's like in the floor, and he escapes through there. I think Sam says like he pulled an El Chapo on us or whatever, like just straight up escaped out of the building. So yeah, we know we can't trust Zemo. So that was obvious. Like, you know, he's gonna be with you for a little bit, but he's always gonna leave. But yeah, there's a great scene where they're like, you know, they're throwing the spears and it almost hits John, and he just gets his ass whooped. And like Bucky and Sam help out a little bit. But then this is where we find out that Bucky's his arm, they can just disable it. So she touches his arm, and it just falls off, and Bucky's like, oh my god. And then, you know, she's like, yeah, we made this shit, so like we know how to disable it. Like it's literally just a press of the button, and it's like cool, it like disconstructs and just falls down, and Bucky's like, oh shit. So that was really cool. I'm really glad that like that happened. And then there's a great line after where Sam is like, did you know that they could do that? And he's like, nope. So it's cool because he just reattaches it. I would have liked for him to have like more of a struggle where he like can't fight with the arm or whatever, but he just puts it back on after. So, but I feel like that's going to come back and play later on for sure, that they're like, yeah, this might be your arm, but we can still control the technology, and we can just turn that off at any moment, just like render you useless basically. So there's also like a warehouse scene where Karli does like escape. They say this place is like a maze. I'm kind of skimming through it here, guys, but Walker and Hoskins go in there. They're all fighting, and Karli escapes downstairs, and all the super serums are knocked over because Zemo starts shooting at Karli, and it's just Zemo and Karli. And Zemo crushes all the 7 or 8 bottles or 12 bottles, whatever, they all spill on the ground, and Zemo starts crushing all of them, dude. He crushes every single one except the last one because John Walker comes over and knocks him out with a shield. And lo and behold, dude, John Walker, there's 1 serum left. And I was like, okay, we knew this was coming, dude. I think we talked about it in past episodes where it's like, we knew John would get his ass kicked over and over and over, and he would have to take the serum because he knew he wasn't good enough without the serum. You know, throughout the episode, they're talking about like, there's a great scene with, so John, sorry, again, I'm all over the map today, but John takes the 1 bottle of serum, and no one else is around him, and it's cool because he puts it in his pocket right when like Sam and Bucky show up, and I was like, well, obviously they're not going to show up until right after he puts it in his pocket. And so they're like, oh, all the super serum is destroyed because obviously why would they believe that there's 1 remaining, or why would they believe that John took it? So, but he's got that super serum in his pocket, and you know, then he's like debating whether or not he should take it the rest of the episode, where they're talking about like, oh, you know, we have 3 medals of honor, but he's like, you know, what would we, like, imagine how many people we would have saved that day if we had the serum. And he's like, I know, but he's like, John asks him, like, aren't you afraid of taking the serum, like making it change you or whatever? And Hoskins is like, hell no, man. He's like, if I took the serum, he's like, I would do so much good with it. He's like, it just changes who you, like, it just makes you more of you. And Walker's like, yeah, but he's like, we could have saved so many people that day with the serum. And he's like, I know. And then like John just keeps failing over and over and over and over. And the breaking point is when the second fight there with Karli, they're all fighting, and then Karli, or one of the flag smashers, kicks Hoskins, and like I'm pretty sure he's dead because he like goes into like a pillar, and he just like, his neck just goes down, and John goes over to him, and he's like, come on, wake up. And he's like hitting his face, and it's like, oh, and the music is playing. This was really good because this is like very clearly a turning point. And I thought like, oh, this is what pushes him to take the serum. He's going to get his ass kicked every time, but his best friend dying is when he's going to be like, that's it, and just inject himself with serum. Now, we don't see him take the serum, but in the next like scene, he kicks like a guy out, and he goes to like hit him with a pipe or whatever, and John just bends the pipe. And Falcon's sitting there, and he's like, what did you do? Because he's like, obviously you weren't that strong before, so I'm 99% sure he took the serum, but I would have liked to see that on camera, like it or like something. It was weird because he looked exactly the same, and then suddenly he just bends the pipe, and I'm like, all right, I guess that's the indication that he took the serum. But I would have liked a bigger build up to that, or like, it seemed like they really wasted like that moment of Lamar dying, or at least being very badly injured and thinking he's dead, for John to be like, it's time, and he just like takes the serum out and puts it in. But instead he just takes it off camera, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, John, he's in like a fit of rage there. He goes out the window, kind of similar to like Steve when he goes out the elevator, but it's not nearly as cool when John does it. He goes down there and he's chasing the Flag Smashers, and Karli's running away, and he finds like the friend or the henchman or whatever, that, not the henchman, but like the right-hand man of Karli, the one that she was talking to earlier. She was like, oh, hey, like, you know, I'm so glad we ran into each other. And they were kind of talking earlier. This guy actually does tell Karli that he's like, I didn't think anyone else could be Captain America until I met you. And I was like, oh, so he was like, hey, the heroes every day, they're too busy or whatever. They're like, America needs a hero that looks like them and struggles like them and knows the pain. And it's like, oh, wow, dude, he's saying that like she could be Captain America. And I was like, wow, I didn't think about that. And I was like, that would be cool. A female Cap would be dope, dude. If they end up with a female Cap, I'm going to be really, really like proud of the MCU. But because of the crimes that she's committed, Karli is probably not going to end up in a great place. So I think that's kind of gone, but maybe her crimes are forgiven. I don't know. But and she's a really sympathetic character. I mean, it's really like, outside of that one mistake, she's really not like a villain's villain. Zemo is way more of a villain than she is. So like you're made to sympathize with Karli in this episode, and it works like a charm for sure. But John is running down, and he runs into the right-hand man, and he's just pissed off. And this was cool, but this was a little messed up, because he goes down there and he like throws the shield into the guy's back, and he falls down, and then he like throws it back at him again, and it zings back into it like his arm, and it looks really cool. But you're like, oh, this is not going to end well. And you know, he's like, hey, where is she? Where is she? And the guy's saying like, it wasn't me. Like, he's not the one who you know, kicked Lamar, and he's not he doesn't know where Karli is or whatever. And John just does not care. So he's like punching him, and like this is right out in the middle of the open, so people start gathering. And he raises the shield up like we've seen Steve Rogers do before, especially in in Civil War, where Cap goes and he could have killed Tony, and he sticks it into his into the arc reactor, if you guys remember. So like, but he could have gone harder, and he could have decapitated Tony there. So Steve knew when to stop. John Walker does not know when to stop, because he raises it up. It's slow-mo, and you can just tell it's like rage. And he comes down, and then he keeps coming down with the shield, and you're like, oh no, dude. Like, that is trouble. And everyone's gathering, and everyone's filming with their cell phones. And it's like, man, this episode is called the Whole World Watching, and it's like, yeah, dude, this is the end of John, because it's an amazing shot where it's like, it just cuts to the guy's like arm, and it's all covered in blood, and the guy's clearly dead because Cap just like absolutely like wrecked him, dude. I can't even imagine those injuries. Not to mention the shield is vibranium, so let's not forget that. And he's coming down with full force on him. So we think that John, because he took the serum, you know, they said it makes you more of who you are, which is why Steve was such a hero. He took the serum, and now he's a superhero. And John was already kind of deranged and already kind of evil, and you can tell he's going down that path in this episode, where he's just like getting abrasive and getting brash, and like having no patience, and just making like bad decisions, and trying to solve everything with violence. And it's like, oh, dude, you are not Cap. You are nowhere near Cap. So he took the serum, and now it's like he's become a real, true villain. And so it ends with like this amazing shot of like a kind of a lower shot, and his Cap shield, and there's blood just covered on the bottom of the shield, and John looks around, and he just knows like he's screwed, because everyone has a cell phone, and everyone's like, they're like scared. And Karli's actually in the crowd there, and it's like, my jaw was on the floor, guys, and I was like, wow. And most of this episode, I was like, oh, this was predictable, or this wasn't great. I really like the Sam stuff, but that ending, guys, where John just beats the shit out of that guy and just absolutely murders him in plain sight. I was like, wow, this guy has gone off the deep end, and obviously he's gonna have to deal with those ramifications, but it'll be really interesting to see. But obviously he's not gonna be Cap anymore, like, because they can't spin that unless they're gonna say that's a terrorist organization and he killed the guy. I don't know, but it's not looking good for Cap, and I'm really excited to see how people are gonna be like, unbelievable what he did. John needs to go to prison, all this stuff. He's a murderer. All that stuff I'm super excited to see, but what an end to the episode. So yeah, for a score, guys, again, for most of this episode, I was really lukewarm on it, but it was a good episode, and I think definitely better than last week's. And then that twist at the end was really, really good. The emotional points, I think, were good. I didn't care about Hoskins, so even if he is dead, I'm just like, I don't know. And John's super unlikable, so I like his spiral down because it's interesting, and I'm excited for him to not be Cap. But like, man, I was like, all right, Zemo escaping, super predictable. Him smashing the super serum made a lot more sense after you found out that he's like, look, now we know what the super serum does. It doesn't just give you super strength; it messes with your mind, and it's gonna kind of affect your soul. And if you're evil, you're gonna go super evil. If you're good, you're gonna go super good. It just makes you more of who you are. And so, like, him knowing that, but like Zemo says, everyone turns to the dark side because you get that power, and it's like suddenly you can do whatever you want, and you have no consequences. And that's what John Walker was doing. He was a good, like, military man, and now he's just a killer. And it's like because he got some power, and he got some recognition and attention, and it's like it all went right to his head, and he was walking around like he was the shit. And it's like, nah, dude, you ain't shit. So it's super interesting to see like how that's going to affect the MCU and how that's going to affect this series, because yeah, 100% I think that's John's last scene or last bit in the Captain America uniform. He's going to get stripped of that, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Obviously, I think the series is building up to like Sam taking over the mantle or something else. That would be pretty obvious. I think Sam Wilson will be the new Cap, but we'll see. I kind of hope they have at least a couple twists and turns between them, because like that was kind of obvious from the beginning, but I don't know, we'll see. But I'm rambling, guys, here. For a score for this one, I'm going to give it an 8-4. I wanted to give it a higher score because of the ending, but a lot of this episode I thought was good, but some parts of this felt like high quality television, but it was less movie for me and more television. There was a quick scene with Sharon Carter, and I was like, I don't know. They talked about the power broker, how the power broker needs the serums again, and Carly's like, we'll deal with that when we deal with it. But yeah, a good episode. The ending was great. Like, it left me wanting more immediately. But with John's kind of path and the way he was acting, it was so obvious he was going to turn evil or do something crossing the line throughout the whole episode, and really to the first couple. So I kind of saw that coming. We haven't really seen John Walker be like a real hero in any of the scenes, like we saw Steve. So like that was their plan for this Cap, and I like that it's different, but wasn't super surprised. I was surprised at the way it happened, but I wasn't super surprised that John did something that is going to cost him the shield ultimately. All right, guys, well, that's it. That's another episode of On Your Left. That's episode 4. We only have 2 episodes left, guys, so I really enjoyed this series. It's a nice little like intermediate point. It's more action paced. It's really nice. The action, I will say, has been phenomenal in the series. Like it's all been really good. The scene where they fight with the Wakandans was sick. That was all really good. I was more invested with that than I am with the Flag Smashers. So, but Karli is a really interesting character, so I'm excited to see like where she goes, and she's sympathetic now, and I think they'll probably end up getting her to work with them somehow. So similar to like when we had Wanda, and Wanda was kind of like the enemy and the villain initially, but she's kind of misunderstood. So I can kind of see the parallels between Wanda and Karli here. They also did kill innocent people both, but Karli is kind of more like they weren't innocent people, they were starving people, and so she's a little misunderstood, I think. But yeah, loving the show, guys, and thanks for checking out Project Plotter. Thanks for checking out On Your Left. Go check out the other content on the channel. Like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell notification. You already know the deal. And until next time, guys, On Your Left.